Okay, well, welcome back. We're together again. I'm excited to be with you again. And like last time, I have no idea how long you've been on your journey at this point about finishing up purity, because we did some talking about purity, and I'll actually expand a little bit on some other things the Lord showed me about purity in the stories I tell here, because there were some connections that He made. And so I'm excited about sharing that with you. But we're going to really talk this time about motives and what you found out about motives. And it's interesting because remember I told you the last time that when the lady that I was on that, I'll call it a retreat, that we went on that retreat together, and she got this word, and the Lord made this acronym out of it. I mean, just thought that was the coolest thing ever, right? And so I was like, oh my gosh, I want you to speak to me that way. Well, okay, so what you're going to see in the next few is that he really started speaking to me a lot in acronyms, and he still does. It's one of the, it's just a sweet way. I don't know if it's actually great because it's an easy way to remember things and to remember what he's teaching me, because he can pack a whole lot in it. So, which is good for me. It makes it easy to remember and makes it simple. And I like simple, because none of this is really hard or complex. I think we've made it that way. But he wants, if he tells us to come into the kingdom as children, then it's simple. And so I love when he teaches me in such simple ways. The one thing I want to say about the fact that he really answered that request to start teaching me this way is that the Lord takes us at our heart. So, you know, when, and I don't remember if it's James or it's one of the letters in the epistles in the New Testament. It talks about that when we ask, one of the reasons we don't receive is that when we ask amiss. I believe how that's shown up in my life is that when I ask from a pure heart, the Lord always takes me at my heart, and the answer is always yes. When my heart is pure. And see, that goes to motives, which is a great segue into this, by the way. If you haven't noticed, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. As we do this, I'm doing this on the fly, and that's life, right? I mean, we don't get to life. Sometimes you show up, and I love that. That's the tagline the Lord gave me for presence coaching, which is show up and shine. It's not get your ducks in a row and prepare and make yourself look presentable and then show up and then shine. We show up and we shine, and so yeah, I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth, and this makes it fun for me. I'm having just as much fun not knowing what's coming next. So this whole thing about purity, that he takes us at our hearts, and there will be a lot more in that I'll share as we go deeper and deeper into the truths that he has to share and that he has to reveal to us. In some of the stories that I tell. But this was like an example of he just totally answered that prayer with a resounding yes. And one of the reasons is it wasn't from a place of jealousy in a way that didn't want her to have it, or comparison or anything like that. It was just, that is the coolest thing ever. I just think that's so cool. I want you to teach me that way too. So because my heart was pure, the answer was yes. And so the way the whole motives thing kind of came about is there's this group of women that would meet for breakfast once a month, and I haven't gone in a long time. They still meet, but at that particular season in my life, I was going pretty regularly once a month to these breakfasts, and someone would always share at one of the breakfasts. Someone would always speak, and this particular time was just a dear friend. Shout out to Tony, a dear friend of mine, and my sister-in-law was at the breakfast with me, and when it was over, my sister-in-law said something to me. She said, I feel like you're going to speak at one of these one day, and I don't know, for some reason I think it has to do with motives. And I just thought, well, that's random. What in the world would I ever have to say about motives? I have no idea. And I didn't have any idea. And it wasn't too long after that, maybe 2 or 3 months after that, I was in the shower one day, and all of a sudden I just kept hearing, hearing this word run through me, run through my head, through my thoughts. Kept hearing motives, 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 and I'm like, what is it about motives? And all of a sudden I heard, and I'm gonna explain a little bit about hearing after I share this. I just heard this. Motives is which would be yours, mine, my opportunity to invoke volition in every situation. And I just sat there going, okay, I know that was not me, because I needed a dictionary to even understand what that is. Like invoke and volition. I mean, I had kind of thoughts, but those aren't words that I would use. I would never say invoke volition. So take just a little brief pause here to talk about the hearing. I guess the best way I can explain it is it's not an audible voice, not that it can't be. So let me preface by saying that, because there have been times when I have heard something audibly. But this, most of the time for me, it's more of a thought lands in my head that I would never think. I mean, I would never think my opportunity to invoke volition in every situation. I wouldn't even think those words. So, I was like, well, what is that about? So I went and wrote that down, my opportunity to invoke volition in every situation. And so we're gonna actually pick this one apart in 2 different sharing sessions. I like that, sharing sessions. But one of the things I wanted to really share with you was that how the Lord answers our prayers when they're pure. And if you go back to purity, one of the other scriptures one of the first ones that I found when I started my search scripturally on purity was that the Lord connects purity with obedience. And it was very fascinating to me that those two were connected, that there was somehow a connection between obedience and purity. And we're going to unpack some of that in this whole thing about motives, in what he's shown me in motives over the next 2 to 3 sharing sessions. So I don't know what all you found in motives, but in every single situation that we have an opportunity to decide how we're going to respond, how we're going to operate within our free will that God has given us, our freedom to choose. And so it is always a matter of the heart. And I think that's why, when it comes to motives, I began to be really aware of motives. Like, why am I doing something? I mean, what's the reason I want to do that? What is so just this awareness of myself. I actually started to become an observer, if you will, of myself, and kind of curious about me. Why do I do that? Why do I always do that? Why am I feeling this way? Why do I want to go do this particular thing? And I would take those things to the Lord and just talk to him about it. I'm like, if say there is, some big sale going on, and I go and spend way too much on way too much that I don't need, and I get it home, I'm like, okay, so why did I just do that? And that was, for me personally, that was a pattern. I don't know that I'd say I was a hoarder, but I definitely, it felt good to shop. There was something about going and getting something new or getting something different, and I had this tendency to not ever want to wear the same thing not just more than once or twice, like in a week or two. I just didn't like wearing the same thing more than once or twice, and then I'd want to go get something new. So becoming curious, why are those things, why are those behaviors there? And so motives is all about it's all about that question of why. And so we're going to unpack more about motives in the next actually what we're going to study the next time is the two words in the middle about invoking, what it means to invoke, and what volition is all about. So those are kind of the two word studies or topic studies, if you will, that we're going to dig into and kind of go pull the treasures out of those two words for the next time that we get together and share. I'm trying to think if there's anything else specifically at the high level about motives. I mean, it's always about the question why. Why is a motives question? And it's about becoming curious. I mean, as you start to really think about motives and intentions, you become an observer. And it's not just an observer of you. I mean, I became curious about, I wonder why someone else is doing that. Like, I wonder what's behind that. Why are they doing that? Instead of making a decision in my own mind or my own heart about why someone is doing it, because I became aware that I had these things that I didn't even understand why I did some of the things that I did. I started to become curious about why does someone behave that way, or why is that their tendency? Instead of making a decision about what it was, I would just become curious, and that's a great stand to take, if you will, in life in general, is a stand of curiosity, not a stand of knowing or telling, but just being curious, open and curious to what's going on around you. Again, like children, they just, it's fascinating to me about children, like they're not even aware that they're their own people for a while. They just think they're an appendage or another part of, which is really, that's kind of the body, right? We are all connected. We are a part of the body, but they're just fascinating to watch. Unless they're hungry or, they're so curious about everything around them. They're not necessarily so curious about themselves. So getting to this point in my life where I started to be curious about why I do the things that I do and why I respond the way I respond, and why certain things interest me and certain other things don't interest me. That's all part of how I was packed. So I started to become curious about how I was packed, and we'll talk more about the unpacking of that later, but just becoming curious about your own life, your own tendencies, your own preferences, your responses. And that question why is huge. It's a curiosity question. So between now and the next time we get to be together like this, I hope that you become more curious. And why becomes a question that is kind of always here at the forefront of your mind. Why is this that way? And why are they this way? And why am I this way? And just be curious and be open and explore. It's very fun to discover what's going on that we can't see. Because see, those things, the motives of the heart, are things we can't see. God can see them, and He wants to reveal them to us. So He wants to begin to reveal you to you, which is a very fun thing. So anyway, so invoke and volition is what we're going to talk about the next time. So spend some time kind of digging in that. And I will share this one little story, which I thought was very fun, because I'd gotten this thing, motives, and it's, sometimes when you're starting to learn to hear the Lord, you're not necessarily sure you always hear Him. Now that one to me was pretty obvious because I wouldn't have had that thought. But as I was researching motives, I landed on, it was a quote by Jonathan Edwards somewhere in my search. And in this quote, he talks about the motives being the volition. It had to do about invoking volition. Oh, I wonder if I could find it. Because I about fell on the floor. Because that was he almost used the same words. I'm going to share that with you real quick. Let me find it. Because these are some of those things that it's like, you couldn't have made that up if you had tried. I mean, some of these things you just can't make happen. And this was one of them for me. This is one of the ways that as the Lord was building my confidence in hearing him in this journey into hearing his voice and walking with him, this was big for me. He says, okay, so Jonathan Edwards, this is the quote. It says, by motive, see, there's the word that I was searching, by motive, I mean the whole of that which moves, excites, or invites the mind to volition, whether that be one thing singly or many things conjunctively. Well, there's a whole lot of other big words, but the fact that he ties volition to motives in his quote was just astonishing to me. So I just want to encourage you to keep digging and have fun as the Lord connects things for you, and share them. Share them with others. I mean, begin to share the things that you're learning and the things that how you're seeing these connections come about, because that encourages other people in their journey. It encourages people who may not even really have a walk with the Lord to just kind of take notice and have a curiosity about that. I think we're to be a curious people. We should look differently, and I think about how the word says that we're to be salt and light. And I always thought about salt as this thing of preserving, and yes, that's true, salt preserves, but the other thing it does is it makes you thirsty. Salt makes you thirsty, and so if our lives are so curious that it makes people thirsty for what we have, that's it. So have fun and share the fun that you're having, and all the things you're discovering as you explore and as you're curious. And people love children. I love to watch children. They're just they're so full of awe and wonder and curiosity, and they say the funniest things. And so just enjoy the journey and enjoy sharing. And then next time, whenever that next time is, we will talk a little bit more about invoke and volition. Thank you.